Making a violin from scratch, but how do I choose the right wood for that violin? Today I show you a little bit how I sort out my wood and what wood for what kind of instrument. Pulled out a lot of instruments just to show you they're not all made by myself. Actually, there's Min, Marco, me, and we have different models, and it's very nice to look at it and to understand how we're doing this kind of work. First of all, when we shop for wood, we're already in our mind, we don't have a one-piece bag for the Lord Wilton, let's say, which is a very outstanding one-piece bag, Guarnieri. Usually when you make a copy, people don't want the wood to be so that it looks exactly like this. Usually when you make a copy, people, when they strong, nice, transparent, of course, what actually the originals don't look like. They have to understand. On the other side, if I see a piece of wood, whatever, then I see the flame slightly inclined, then I could already imagine that if I open it up and I make a joint, it becomes a Stradivari, and Stradivari beds. Very nice flame, very regular, classic, very brave Strat. Or we have here a very nice one. Underneath, we're talking about the wood of the back. Now here you cannot see it on the flat side, but here you can see it very nice like this. And this, just by looking at it, I think that comes out probably a nice Stradivari Cremonese, could be a very nice one here. And interesting, if you look at the old pictures of a Stradivari, the scrolls, most scrolls don't even have flames on it. It's later on that they cut the neck, the baroque neck, and put it in a modern neck, that they then used for the neck very flamed wood, but the original Stradivari didn't have flamed necks. Now certainly you can take a book now and then search for a nice flamed Stradivari scroll. On Guarnieris, actually, I didn't notice that this much, that the scrolls were not so much flamed, by the way. So interesting, because of course now if you would, let's say you're a beginner making, everybody's dreaming of a nice flamed scroll, the wood of a flame, and within this flamed texture of the wood, then there pops out this nice scroll. But just imagine that it's rather difficult to cut nice with a strong flamed wood. So if it's your very first to fifth or 10th scroll, using a flamed wood for carving a nice scroll is a rather difficult task. Said that, of course, nowadays we use the wood from Bosnia. Years ago, it was like a trend that the wood was coming from other areas, like from France, from Switzerland, Romania. Still a lot of wood is coming from Romania. It's difficult also to tell where it's coming from. But once you have a nice piece of wood which comes from Bosnia, like something like this one here, but here you can tell already that it is a different. In Italian, they call it pasta, yeah? Just like the pasta you were eating, the spaghetti, and but it's a kind of a dough. Once you make your own pasta, you know what I mean. It's a very compact. It's like a little bit like Play-Doh, a little bit more thicker and heavy, and it's a little bit like speck. You know, when it's a really nice wood, it's very compact. You almost don't see any pores or holes or nothing. It's just a very, very homogeneous material, which has then also these flames. Yeah, so this one is a super nice wood, but that doesn't mean that every instrument has to be super fancy. So I'm just at the moment working on a testore, and testore is somehow a very interesting looking, yeah, but it's certainly this here with the years strong, the flames strong like this, is somehow exaggerated in its own style. And I think this is, here I have not closed it yet, I just finished to put in the label this morning, and here is Carlo Antonio Testore, and this is me. Looks already super dirty, just like a real Testore, and everything is as its best. And so then once you finish it and you try to imitate it like it is in the original, yes, the wood is not the same, but it somehow reflects very nice this kind of instrument. Of course, sometimes then I have the flames a little bit more narrow, but it's a little bit this kind of wood, yeah. And even the top wood, I try to find the right matching years Here I want to show you here the years of the top wood. So then I have it here a little bit similar, and I try to choose even the grain a little bit similar to like its original. Just to show it a little bit more nice, here there is one instrument which Marco is making, and it's a Guarneri Sainton. It's very similar to the Ole, but a little bit more extreme, let's say. If you look at it, it looks already pretty rough and fancy with all the holes in the purfling and everything, yeah. I show you how it looks like in the original in the book, and then you can understand how it's pretty close actually. Yeah, so this is this, and this is what Marco made, yeah? And I think it's not important that everything is exactly the same, but the first impression, if you look to that instrument and you look to this one, you say, okay, this is matching, and this is exactly the way how we choose the wood for the instrument. Beside that, of course, the wood has to be well seasoned. Nowadays, our labor living in Europe, having a 21st century business running here is so expensive. It doesn't make any sense to save on the first steps the material. People believe that you become rich because you use fresh wood or whatever. It's completely nonsense. This is like a 30-year or 40 or 50-year myth in violin making, or from the musicians who think that the violin maker becomes rich because he's using a fresh wood. Completely nonsense. Forget it. Nowadays, you would cut your own legs if you just would use bad wood. Sometimes I admit that when you look at the instrument from Edgar, that you're surprised what kind of wood he's using. I admit that not all the wood I bought in the past has always been the super trooper, super fancy wood like this one. Okay, but I certainly had some criteria, and for a long time and even still now, I somehow believe that it doesn't need to be flamed, the wood, in order that it sounds great. Okay, of course the eye also helps that the instrument sounds good. So this here is like the high fats from Min, and if you look at it and it is looking nice and similar like its original, of course it's convincing, and you would say even the spruce, the top is nice, the ribs are nicely flamed, and the back is similar to its original, the Guarneri high fats X David. It's a great sounding instrument, a specific sound, but it's nice if you just say, nice high fats Guarneri. That's immediately, if you understand it already from the choice of wood and everything. Then of course Asian customers prefer a one-piece bag, and in their minds all good master violins need to be one-piece bag, which is their dream, but that doesn't mean that it has to be like this. And especially Guarneri and Stradivari, most of the instruments are two pieces. This one-piece myth is a little bit from Germany, that the master is using the one piece and the students and the lower grade instruments with two-piece. Again, a sign, a myth from about 40 or 50 years ago, where the material itself was much more expensive than the labor. Nowadays things have changed dramatically, and putting now here 100 or 200 more on the table for a nice piece of wood doesn't really change you that much on the final price. It's the time, the human time, and running the workshop, which is the major cost. Once we have that and we have sorted out that, we try to use the ribs from the same wood from the back. And then when I bought the wood, I get already here nice wood for, let's say, for this nice piece here. And then I have here already the block for my scroll. And then they have already cut also off here the ribs. So then I have here already the wood for the ribs. For this one, you try to have like 3 to 4 pieces at least. And then it comes to the top. And the top, I try to find a little bit similarities. Guarneri very often had in the middle very fine grain where the joint is, and towards the side larger grains. On the Sainton, for instance, here, let me see. Yeah, you can, Sainton was just the first Guarneri which popped in my mind. If you look at the top, grains are very fine here and large in the outside. This is a very typical Guarneri top, I would say. And that's what we try to search when we search now a top for, let's say, for a Sainton Guarneri. While a Stradivari has it very regular grain. So here this one is a I would say it's regular, even so it's also a little bit larger here, but it's almost all very, very fine grain. Now, I'm not such a big fan, let's say, that it has to be fine grain in order that it sounds good. There is also an advantage if it's not so fine grained on the top, because you have to imagine that the dark wood between the ears is a little bit more heavy. And so if the ears are a little bit larger, the entire top becomes lighter. So, and I think it's very Cremonese or very Italian to have it quite large grain. So let's say a very large, everything large, I would use it for a testore, let's say, okay? If it's regular, generally regular, I use it, I love to use it for a Strat. If it's in the middle, more fine and then more large on the outside, I love to use it for Guarnieri. We buy these tops already cut like this because nowadays buying a whole tree, I don't have the time anymore. I love to buy the whole tree. For a violin maker, it's a big help to have one tree, hundreds, even thousands of tops out of the same wood or out of the same region. You can adapt easier to the material you're working with, and you get used to your wood. And especially in that case, it's the best that you just take it from where the great masters from the 17th century took it, from the Val di Fiemme. Now, I wouldn't know why should I go to Canada or Austria or Switzerland or France if they took the wood where it was most easiest for them to access. And that's why I took also all my tree for all my wood for the spruce from the Val di Fiemme. Val di Fiemme because there's a valley, air is very constant blowing, and that's the best actually for the growth of the spruce. When I got the tops, these ones are already cut like this. These are from Bachmann now. If I cut it, before I cut it in two, I first cut a slice for the bass bar. So I first looked that the grain is straight like this. I cut my bass bar piece, and that piece I split here, and I look how it is splitting. Referring to how this piece is splitting, I then decide how I cut it. Slightly like this, straight, or slightly in the other direction, slightly only, okay? In order that I obtain in the middle where the joint is the most matching grain direction of the spruce. If these things are completely wrong, then you have these instruments where you can see one part of the top is light and the other dark, and then you turn it around and it's exactly the opposite. Like this is, I think, not really good for sound. Yeah, of course, never generalize. Then maybe you have now a super great sounding Strat and there it's exactly wrong. I would try to do my best in order that everything is as idle as possible. Spruce as well, I think we take it well seasoned, you feel it immediately. It has to be like dry. If there is slight damp and humid, no need to waste my human time to work on something which is fresh, even though the great masters worked with fresh wood from the same year the tree has been cut down. Said that, we are actually ready to jump into making the model. Even so, I showed you now a lot of Guarnieri models because it's nice, because they are more evident, the differences. We have already decided that we are going to make a Stradivari, right? Now, regarding the Stradivari, I'm a little bit undecided which one I should take. The Cremonese, which I personally myself, I think a little bit, yeah, it's a little bit sad looking from my point of view, but it sounds good. The Stradivari Betz, which I think is a very classic, good sounding, classic Stradivari, and a larger one, a larger shape, the Hellier, which is actually in origin a decorated one, which I would make without decorations. What do you think? Which one of the three Strat models should I take? Let me know, and we see you soon for the next time. By the way, if you want to jump into making violins, then you have to subscribe to my Violin Making Academy, Edgar Online Violin Making Academy. There it's much more into detail and we do everything step by step, everything together. Hope to see you soon. Subscribe, tell your friends. Ciao, ciao.